Alright, so quick update first before I get into the video. The comic reviews might end up being a bit what they were before because I'll have more time in my hands. But let's get right into it with the first two volumes of Revival, one of which was actually in my PC. Not Volume 1, but Volume 2. That was because I knew Volume 1 was at the library, and I bought this so long ago. Volume 2 I bought so long ago that I was kind of like, they have Volume 1 at the library, I get Volume 2, so I read Volumes 1 and 2, and then beyond then, I guess I just never, thought of the future, so to speak, so... Not thought the future. I didn't think ahead. That's where you use, not what I just said. But I did think ahead to where, there's 8 volumes in the series, and you end up really liking it, we'll be able to purchase all of them at the same time, whatever. And then there's the hardcovers, but I have the compendium, is why I finally decided to reread Volume 1, and then read Volume 2 all the way through. I knew I read Volume 1, because I had the little markings that I make in comics. I don't do this anymore, but I used to do it all the time, especially with library books. I do this, the little flap. I do with library books. Like, library books, I know that sometimes that's the least of the blemishes that are on a library book, so I don't feel as bad. But when they're in my personal collection, I'm the only one reading them, so of course I only want to keep them in mint condition. If I knew I was the only one that was reading the library books I check out, which is highly unlikely, but if that was the case, then I don't like to put the little markings here. In fact, there was a new book I got. I was using bookmarks anyways. So I was like, you know what? Let's use that other bookmark and then put it on the book itself, on the new book I got from the library. But yeah, I don't think it really matters anyways, because I think everybody does. In fact, there were markings like that on a book with pages that I know I didn't make a marking on that page, because usually all I do is just the next chapter and nothing beyond that. Beyond that, if I am in the middle of a comic, if I'm in the middle of issue 10 of Revival and I have to go do something else or go attend to whatever the hell, I take a little marking and I put that my library card or any kind of card that I have on my phone, I put that on there, and then I use that. Alright, that's a little long explanation. I did not need to say any of that, but my point is that the reason why I think this one was when I'm reading for the first time is because of the fact that there's no markings here whatsoever. And that was bought so long ago that I would not have cared. The only thing I see is this right here, but that could have been made by accident. But without further ado, let's get into the actual review of the comic instead of blabbering about bullshit. I did end up liking this book. I do think it's one of Tim Seeley's better works. However, it still isn't fantastic. I think only because it got to the pacing was better, I like this one. Volume 2 is something better than Volume 1. Volume 1 is definitely a slow burn, and because Tim Seeley isn't really good at writing that kind of story, it does drag. But he knows how to write fast-paced, action-packed portions, and I can't think of the word. But he knows how to write action-packed scenes. And when those hit, they really do hit. And honestly, I hate to say it, but I think it's pretty impossible not to write action-packed scenes really well. Have good pacing. I think that's like writing 101. One of the first things you learn is if you're writing an action-packed scene, this is comic book writing 101 specifically, I think it's pretty easy to learn how to, when you want an action-packed scene, how to keep the pacing as fast as you want it to be. And as fast as it should be at that. And that is definitely the strength in this comic. And also, and not just with action-packed, but the suspense, too. The suspense, that, he really knows how to build suspense, and he knows where to end certain issues. And sometimes I was thinking hey, this is where the issue ends, right? No, we had 10 more pages. I feel like I've been reading this book forever. You did have that in both volumes, not just Volume 1, but Volume 2. So some pacing issues here and there, and quite honestly, because it does leave off on a sort of cliffhanger, to be fair, but not a huge cliffhanger. It's kind of you end a story arc. You wrap up certain things, but leave some things open. I'm not exactly clamoring to read more. I will be reading more as soon as possible, but I'm not exactly clamoring to read more. Now, those of you who saw the video that when I was showing these books off on, which you should watch that video because I show more than just what I'm going to be reviewing now, and I've shown books I've already reviewed, it's just all at once, like saying, oh, here's some books I'll be reading, you know, I didn't review them, obviously, I'm just showing off what I would be reading. I think that's a good video to watch because you know, again, what I'm reading, and if you say, hey, I like this cover, or if I say it's Preacher, I love it because I've read Preacher 5,000 times, and each time I read it, I love it even more. So it's always going to be my #1 comic of all time. So and thus, I'm always going to say that. You know, I can pick it up right away before I even review it for the billionth time. And of course, like the covers, covers looks pretty cool. Check that out. And hey, reading at the same time I'm reading it at, so you feel more connected to the YouTuber that may live in the next town over, or the next state over, or completely across the world. Like I'm really, but had train of thoughts kind of leaving the station. Train left the station, but so it's good, and then just pacing, and then talking about the books, and it's not as good, and then so in that video I did explain that I was going to try and read this series in the deluxe edition formats. It does not look like the lending library will be able to give me the books right away. They're going through there's a good word to use for it, it escaped me right now, but they're going through some changes at the library. They're completely revamping everything. Thus, they won't be able to get books out to me or out for interloans as easily as they were. And some books they just straight up will not lend right now, and that's until next year, 2026. So unfortunately, I think for now, it's only going to be these 2 volumes. I could read the compendium, but it was just a nice way to split it up, because I want to read I want to read 1 deluxe edition per month. So I'm reading 1 deluxe edition of Revival per month, not the whole entire compendium in 1 month, or split up into 2 months. I like it being organized. It's more just being OCD than anything else. Actually, that explains the other reason. This is why I'm reading Invincible in deluxe editions, is because of the fact that I like the format better. Yeah, I'm not gonna say like, oh, the compendiums are, they can't, what's even the point? No, I get the point of compendiums. I'm glad I have the compendiums, and they're just fine. Image, like I said before, Image Comics, 9 times out of 10, they know how to bind compendiums, so you never have to worry about the binding. So I'm not worried about that. It's just kind of the novelty. Hey, the library has deluxe editions, and it's an oversized format, so might as well. And again, like I said before, nice way to which doesn't really make any sense. If I do my end of the year video, I really shouldn't include Revival. Maybe I'll do like the one exception. Maybe not, because I do have Volume 2. So yeah, I just do that. That's what I would do, because I own Volume 2. But anyways, again, it was just a way to not format it, but a nice way to not separate. Come on, organize it. Nice way to organize it per month, not. Again, the whole compendium between July and September. No, it was July, or it was June I read Volume 1, July Volume 2, and so on and so forth. Alright, next review. That was a very long review for just 1 book. Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. I think already gets my pick of the week. But this should go without saying, Rick Remender is one of the best writers, not just for indie books, but comics, not just indie comics, but comics in general. But you can tell that his independent work is the work is the work that he is the most passionate about, and it shows in this relatively unheard of comic. I think when people talk about the best Rick Remender comics, even if they're they do a top 20 Rick Remender comics of all time, not just indie, his Marvel work too, and DC work. He's done anything for DC? I can't think. Dark Horse. And then go through all the publishers he's done work for, I feel like, yeah, it's still a lot of books to consider, but I feel like this wouldn't even get an honorable mention. I feel like even people who are fans of his work, the casual fans, probably don't even know about this book. And they should know about this book, because this book is really damn good. Has what I like to call PP, or perfect pacing. Sometimes a bit too fast. I honestly had to reread certain panels, because it was just a bunch of action, and I missed certain things, so it was just so fast. But it's also, you could probably finish the whole entire series. It's both volumes, and remember that huge hardcover I showed you, that's the whole entire series. So it's an even better way of showing off just how big the series is. You can probably finish all that in 6 hours. That's how fast paced it is. And just a really damn good story too. And it has like a nice conclusion that honestly ties everything together. And the downside is that because it's so fast paced and because there's a lot of, so what I mean by fast paced, there's not a whole lot of dialogue, and I felt like at certain times we needed dialogue to explain certain things. But I think on a reread, I'll get more information that I didn't get the first time. So the rereadability factor on this book is insanely high. So it does get so far the pick of the week, one of at least the second, at least the runner-up, the honorable mention. I'll do it out of 10 reviews when I get back around to it. Hopefully I don't forget. And then Dracula. This is one where the artwork was better than the actual story itself. Very confusing and just strange. I think a reread I'll like a lot better on a reread, but I did definitely prefer Creature from the Black Lagoon, as it was more less convoluted and weird than this one was. And not the good kind of convoluted or weird. I wouldn't say convoluted, it was just like, that one was more straightforward in a good way. And this is more just all over the place. Bit of a mess. But maybe it's just the way I read it. Maybe I just missed certain details that I shouldn't have missed and didn't notice I missed these certain details. That's entirely possible. Again, I own this book, so I get to read it whenever I want to. Yes, I have a library copy. I know it's just a library thing here, but it was when I got from the library because it's a novelty. You can hear all about that when I went over these books. Flash, again, like I said, the Wonder Woman run, it's what got me into the character. Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman New 52 run got me into Wonder Woman, and this one, it got me into the Flash. So I owe a lot to these runs of these characters. Even if, like, on this 70th rerun, it's starting to lose its momentum, I still owe a lot to the Brian Buccellato run of the Flash. Thus, I still do highly recommend it. It's just that there's a lot more problems that are showing themselves on my 70th reread of The Flash. And one of them is kind of the pacing. It's kind of uneven. I feel like certain issues have a lot more dialogue than they should. I understand, yes, the concluding issue of Flash versus Gorilla Grodd is going to have a lot more action than the introductory issue. I get that, but it was more just, for a book called The Flash, you have a lot of dialogue, and not in a good way. And I think a lot of it, and some of it was just a lot of narration. I really hate over-narration in comics, especially when it's modern age. In the 60s, Silver Age, Bronze Age, and whatever age is right before the modern age, that makes sense. But the modern age, like, and I'm not talking 85, I'm talking like 2000 and above, should not have this much narration. There's really no excuse for it. 2004, maybe, but 2011, absolutely not. It's just the over-narration that really hurts pacing of comics, for me. Next one up is Superman American Alien, and this is, like The Flash, this is becoming to the character Superman. Now, unlike The Flash, this still holds up 100%. If you want a story that's not a Superman story, but still kind of sort of is, this is where you look no further than this comic. When people talk about the best Superman origins, that video is not complete without at least briefly mentioning American Alien. This is my preferred Superman story, probably one of my favorites, if not for All-Star Superman. So if you haven't read this one yet and you like the character, hell, you want to get into the character, look no further than Superman American Alien. If they ever do a DCU animated movie, they should do that. They should do that next. And I'm talking animated ones, not the live-action ones. Iron Man, because those are different. Iron Man 2.0, Volume 1. This one was pretty damn good. I kind of felt like some issues weren't connected as much as they should have been, but there's some like little like one-shot-ish stories. Actually, I think it was one or two. One of them is explaining the character of Palmer Addy, and it's a lot of narration and a lot of like telling you, but they do it in such an interesting and investing way that I think everyone should. And I'm talking like more contemporary, like The Flash. they should take notes for this. This has been interesting. When I was just complaining about the over narration in Flash, it's not that bad. It's not all the time with the Flash. It became noticeable. But here it was like, this is how you do it. I know you have to have, sometimes you have to explain things in dialogue. You can't really show it in the pictures, and I get that. But this is the way you do it. You make it absolutely interesting and fit the narrative and sound natural. Which in the Flash does sound natural. But it's the other two. You could argue that that's not the case. But this one, it was pretty damn good. I would definitely be picking up Volume 2 if they have it. Scalp the Deluxe Edition. This will be my top 5 once I finish the series. Now, what do I mean by finish the series? Well, I had to stop after book 4 because after book 4 they didn't have the last 2 volumes in softcover or hardcover. Now it looks like they have it in softcover, so I'll hopefully be able to finish this once and for all. I say hopefully because I made that mistake with Batman by Tom King. I swear I saw they had his entire run in softcover. They did not. And I found out the hard way. And I was so adamant, like, oh my god, I finally get to finish the Batman Tom King, yay! And I didn't. But this is an absolutely outstanding comic. This is, if you're gonna make an indie book, you should use this as homework. Use this as a template. Because this is just outstanding in every way, shape, and form. It's my favorite comic of all time? No. That still goes to Preacher. The second slot still goes to Sin City. But number 3 may just be Scalped. And last and kind of least is Deadpool by Kelly Thompson. The run that I just cannot get into. And this time around, it was the same exact way. It does get better as it goes along. The last 3 or 4 issues are exactly what I wanted from this Deadpool run, but everything else, it just seems way too strange. And maybe because it's from Chris Bachalo, who is the artist of Jason Aaron's run on Doctor Strange, but this really did feel like it fit more at home, as the storylines in here felt like they'd take place more at home with Doctor Strange, or maybe even Venom, than Deadpool. Just because you make it humorous does not mean that automatically makes it fit more Deadpool. It just makes the jokes fall flat, extremely flat sometimes. However, the jokes are told in such an earnest way that I never found them to be super cringe. Some of them are like, okay, projected out joke, they have 3 juvenile humor-ass jokes in one page, and it's kind of like, even for Deadpool, it's pretty damn excessive. But again, it's told in such an earnest way. It's kind of like someone telling you a joke that you don't find funny, but they took time to tell you a joke, and it's not super cringe, and they're really enthusiastic about telling you the joke. So it's kind of like when your kid tells you a joke. That's kind of like the humor is in here, where it's not particularly funny, but it's also not super cringe. It's not Ryan North cringe, is what I'm trying to say. It has that earnestness to it that makes it, and it makes that personality to it that makes it not so cringe, and you can get past it just pretty easily. And it's not excessive too, the humor. But now I'm gonna go over them again, do the out of 10 reviews. We'll go backwards. Deadpool gets a 6 out of 10. Scalped, 10 out of 10. The top 5 will always be 10. All of them are 10s out of 10s. That's what top 5 is. That's why they're top 5. That means they're all 10 out of 10s. And then 6 through 10 is 9 out of 10, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I just realized I'm just 7 out of 10 for Iron Man. Despite the upsides, it still has some minor pacing issues, and it kind of forgettable. Superman American Alien, I'm going to put this on the other side. This is my PC book. 9.5 out of 10. Absolutely outstanding work. And just incredible pacing, too. It doesn't feel like your average Superman comic. Superman comic. It has its own personality, and the personality it has is absolutely outstanding. And it still feels like a Superman book through and through, or Clark Kent book, rather, through and through. Man of Steel by Zack Snyder, it is not. The Flash, or the Man of Steel of Superman comics, is not. The Flash gets an 8 out of 10, or 9 out of 10. Dracula The artwork gets a 9 out of 10. The story gets a 5 out of 10, so we'll round it out to, I'm probably doing the math wrong, but who the hell cares? I sure don't. To a 6 out of 10. Pick of the weeks always get 10s out of 10s. However, I would say this is more a 9 out of 10. It's not quite as good as Scalp. And Scalp would be pick of the week, but I don't include rereads as picks of the week. And last but not least is Revival, and overall it gets a 6.5 out of 10. And that, as I say, is that. One more thing before I go, 6 out of 10 does not mean bad, it just means average. Hey, wow, 20 and a half minutes.